So here's the problem. There's another study that comes out. This is where things are getting really ugly for us in general, is that as women will turn 30, their standards go up. This is like, you want to know why we're
Yeah, but
having
I
like,
think that's a good thing. I personally like I want to go with high standard. I agree. I think like younger 20-year-olds, they don't know what the fuck they want. They probably
yeah.
don't have as much self-value. They probably like I actually see this as a positive. Like
Wait,
if a girl hits 30 and she's like, hey, I really know what I want and I got high standards, I think that's good. But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Marcus,
No,
do
no,
you deal
like
with girls that have low standards? Sorry,
no.
because I
I'm
never
not.
met a girl who has low standards.
It's not a function of standards. Maybe I'm using the wrong word. In their mind, their standards are going up. I believe what's happened, and this is just what I've seen, is they become more delusional. I had a girl come on my show just recently, and she's like, "God, ladies, when you just turned 40, don't worry about it. You don't need to rush into having kids." And I'm like, "What the fuck are you talking about? You just turned 40 and you don't need to rush in." And she was like, literally saying, like, I have a friend of mine. She just had a kid at 50, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on here, dude? Like, you're actually telling women. You guys remember that show Suits? It was like Gabrielle Mecht and Patrick Adams. It's a really popular show in the States called Suits. There's like near the end of the show, there's these two people, Louis Litt and Sheila Zaz, and they're 50 years old trying to have a kid. And I'm like, this is the message that women are getting. And because of that, they're waiting later and later to have kids. And I'm seeing this over and over again when girls are coming on my show and they're like, they were cool with a guy who treated them well in their 20s. Now they turn 31 and 32 and he needs to make $1 million a year. Like all of a sudden this shit came out of nowhere. So I'm either way, they'll say one thing and do another, but I've just seen that instead of women getting older and actually lowering the barrier for them to get into a relationship, they're raising it. And it's called, and while I understand it's good for a woman to have high standards, especially if she's my daughter, the problem is we're getting the lowest level of marriage and the lowest like fertility rates are dropping because women, when they're actually less desirable, are asking more from men.
Yeah, but I think that's probably men's fault too. Like I'm thinking like men's prime, what we'd say is like 40 or some shit, right? It's obviously
Yeah.
all
Well, it
letting
depends
women,
on who
right?
you ask. If you ask Mac and
And
Murphy, it's 29.
yeah,
But if
right.
you look at the dating app, it's so funny. The blue pill
Yeah.
dudes are like, no, these young girls don't want older guys. And I'm like, then what? How the fuck do you
Oh,
explain my life,
stupid.
bro?
Yeah,
Yeah.
stupid. So,
I'll say,
but
I
I
want
think
to
like
say this
women's
too, though.
prime is probably, sorry, I'll just quickly say, I think women's prime is probably moving a little bit too. Like men aren't expecting to have kids at like 21 and be married anymore. Like
Sure.
men want to get married
Yeah.
later and have kids later. There's, plastic surgery and all this shit. Like I think women are looking after their beauty and health a lot longer these days, even though it's like a whole shorter than men's. But I feel like that is their prime is probably getting pushed back a little bit too.
Agreed. Yeah.
But I agree. Like, these girls in fucking big cities or some shit that again, like external validation, they're all over social media. They want a guy with like $2 billion or some shit. I'd like to think that is, uh, let's say, like biased towards those regions. Like sitting here in Sydney, like I just don't see that. Like most girls you meet aren't looking for like some super fucking rich guy or having these like crazy expectations. And same in like obviously, I'm sure South America and Eastern Europe and whatever. It's probably a lot in these like very central areas in America is my guess here. But yeah, I mean, it's awful if you're meeting a girl that's fucking past her prime and then acting like she's the hottest thing in the world. But it's the worst thing is for her because she probably just never ends up finding someone, right? But yeah, hopefully that's not the trend we're going for.
I just want to throw this layer on there, though. Michael, you did say that this was like generally speaking, these high stimulation girls are not going to be as good in long-term relationships, right? And I do
Yeah.
think that we need to point out there are some anomalies there because there are quite a few women out there that, like men, want to have their fun, want to party in college, want to be a little bit wild, but in the back of their mind, they always want to find that right dude and settle down and have a family. So I think
Eric,
that
I think
I
we're talking
think
about two
that there's
different
a
things. Them wanting to get married, I agree with you. Them wanting to stay in a marriage, it becomes much harder the more partners that they've had before they were married.
I think that's true for guys though too. It's kind of like once you've
Sure.
overeaten, once you like I've been in phases of my life where I've eaten too much, right? My relationship with food is fucked like for life. You know what I mean? To go from like overeating to eating healthy usually takes a lot of discipline,
Mm.
So I think somebody that's indulged sexually, that's lived a more adventurous life, is it a little bit harder for them to settle down eventually and like kind of leave that lifestyle behind? Is it always going to kind of gnaw at the back of their mind? It depends on the person. And I think it's kind of the same with men and women, right?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, the player lifestyle is also damaging to men too. Not nearly as damaging as it is to women. It's probably 4, 5, 6 times more damaging, 10 times more damaging to women than it is to men. But we watch these podcasts like my good friends, the Fresh and Fit podcast. We make fun of these girls who are like, oh, he's got to be 6'5", work in finance, have blue eyes. That fucking TikTok meme. But yeah, they want these guys, these impossibly high value men, and they look like a fat cockroach themselves, and like they all want these like insanely high status guys. But I'm just as bad as those girls now, bro. Like I'm just as bad as they are now. Now that I'm 36, and now that I'm ready to like actually start maybe popping out a baby or two.